Hi, everybody. Welcome to In the Vine Dating Podcast. It is your host, Melissa Chavez. And here with me, I have.
Shekinah. Yesy.
Denise.
So, once again, as you guys know, Denise is in Ohio, which explains the webcam. It's been working. We're so excited. And I hope you guys saw that reel we did with the Office theme song. It literally made our day, made our week. So, yes. So, it's Thursday. We are, 3 days away from our event. This is nuts. We are so excited just thinking about the first text message. We're like, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this. To where we're at now, we're just so excited and we can't believe that the time is here. What do you ladies think? How are you feeling about the event?
I'm just excited to meet every single person that signed up. I feel like it's going to be like meeting a celebrity. You know, you're going to kind of get like, oh my gosh, you signed up. I remember when you signed up, you know?
Yes.
I remember I was doing this and oh my gosh, you're amazing. I can't wait to, talk to you and get to know you guys and just see how you guys interact together.
Yes, I agree. Denise, how do you feel?
It's actually a bittersweet for me. I'm sad that I won't physically be there,
Yes.
but I am so expectant and I'm so excited to just hear the feedback, the testimonies, just everything, all the hard work that's been put in, by every single person, really just come into fruition and just really see how it all goes. So to say I'm excited is literally an understatement. I am just thrilled to see what God's going to do in the midst of this all.
Absolutely. And I know that you have your 3 babies praying for the people that are in attendance. Just so you
Yes.
guys know, those are the best intercessors that you could ever possibly have. Okay. So you're welcome. What about you, Shakay? How do you feel?
No, I'm super excited. I'm excited to engage with everybody and play the games and just be a part of it. And I know we've been looking forward to this. And so the fact that it's like finally here and it's only a few days away is just so exciting. And I know that Yessie and Melissa especially have been working really hard on like putting together the games and like the icebreakers. And it's just been exciting to be part of this process. And so
I know we're shrieking
Yeah,
over here.
we're excited.
So yeah, it's gonna be great. If you didn't get a chance to get a ticket, I'm so sorry. Honestly, we wish we could open it up to everybody. I know that the ladies, we received a few feedback that people were disappointed that they couldn't get tickets, but there will be other ones. So stay tuned for that. And so this week, last week, we talked about the interview that we did with A-Rob, right? And we got great feedback on that. We talked about biblical masculinity. We talked about traditional gender roles and all that stuff, which, interestingly enough, some of the feedback that I got on that was like kind of on both sides of the coin. So I think another time we'll definitely be able to talk about opposing opinions when it comes to that. But it was definitely interesting to hear that. And so this last Monday, we released Andre's interview, which is Yesenia's husband, and and it went so well. Honestly, as you guys saw on the interview, Andre is super methodical. He was like, "Hey, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3," and I was like, "Yes, sir." But it was so cool to be able to sit with him and just hear his story, because again, like I knew him, and I think on the interview we said 2013, but I knew him before that when he and I were both like out in the world and stuff. So it's just crazy to be able to see his transition from, like we talked in there, from like an immature boy, right? Which I to me it sounds so demeaning. So sorry, Andre. I don't mean it like that. I promise. To a biblical man, and so that to me is. I'm pretty excited. So today we're gonna break down the interview a little bit. We're gonna give in a few perspectives from the woman's role, right? And we're gonna go from there. So let's dive in, shall we? We shall.
Yes.
I'm answering myself. Okay, so one of the things that caught my attention about him was because yes, he has a similar testimony where it's like, they didn't start going to church first. Like it was just a God thing, right? That God was calling you guys first, and that you started feeling your heart turn towards God. And so how he said that he just really started following God. Well, not thoroughly, but he just started getting the impression of blessing his food. And that to me was like, that's funny because a lot of people discredit that, right? Where it's like, oh, you're just blessing your food, like whatever. But to me, it's just a little bit crazy that was like the inception of it all. Like, what do you guys think? Have you heard stories like that of people where it's just like, it wasn't the traditional way of finding Jesus?
I can just say that when I did meet Andre, he actually helped my sister and I move into my apartment. So he actually visited us and we had like pizza and it was just for a little bit. Like he helped with some things. And we were just friends, you guys. My sister was there too. But he prayed for the food because we sat down and we were having dinner. And he prayed for the food, and my sister and I were just looking at him like, because I didn't go to church, but I was reading the Bible. So I was getting to know the Lord, but I didn't know people actually just bless the food. So when he did that, we were stunned. And my sister asked him, do you do this all the time? Like, and he's like, every single meal I do it. And he really does. And he's been teaching my daughter to do it. And like for Thanksgiving, he's the one that they'd say, Andre, bless the food. So it's pretty cool to see. But honestly, the fact that he said he was transformed and just started doing that, to me, it's unheard of. I would have never gone the route of just starting to bless the food like that, And he said he just felt like the need to do it.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's super crazy. Does Denise, you want to chime in on that?
No, actually, I don't. I can't think of anything honestly right now of a story of just something of that nature. To be honest,
That's fair. What about you, Shakina?
No, I think God has definitely been showing up in people's lives like that more and more. Like you hear of, Islams are just saying Jesus now. You hear of, I hear a lot of testimonies of where God just showed up in my room or God just convicted me and I suddenly decided like I shouldn't do this anymore. And, I think that testimony is so powerful because it just shows how open a person is to this way of life is not working for me.
Yes.
And I need something different. And then God shows up in those moments. He shows up in those vulnerable moments. And it was just beautiful to hear that from Andre's perspective because he heard the voice of God and he acted upon it. And I think that's the part of the testimony not too many people follow through on. Because I think a lot of people feel that conviction. A lot of people hear the voice of God just in those random moments. But what's beautiful about Andre is that he followed through. And then he saw it. I'm going to start praying over my food and just being thankful for that. And then he just through that process of, Lord, where are you going to lead me from here? He followed through with it. And so I love that part of that testimony of he heard it. And that I don't think is super rare. I think a lot of us hear that call out of nowhere, but to follow through is unfortunately the rare thing. But it's amazing to hear the testimony that he shared of what that looks like and how that manifested in his life by just simply being obedient. So I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, that is really good. I hadn't even considered that, like, as far as other cultures just following Jesus, right? Because, I'm not even going to go down there. But, it was really good. So one of the major themes in his story is accountability, right? And so how he first sought out accountability and that helped him transform his life. Because what I especially liked was he said that he started going to he mentioned the Outsiders and he was going there and that every week it was like an altar call, an altar call, an altar call. Which again, as we mentioned there, like there's a time and place for that. But then there was that process of maturity where he's like, okay, I know that there's more to that than this. And so to me, that was a major component in just growing, right? And so then how has accountability, obviously we see how it affected him, but how has accountability impacted you ladies and how have you seen it transform the lives of men around you? I'm going to let Shike answer this one.
Well, first, I do want to say that I love that part. That was probably when he talked about accountability was the part that that highlighted the most for me was because he shared the miracle that he received when he first got saved. There was that miracle of like all the partying, the drug use, and the alcohol just suddenly went away.
Yeah.
And I thought that was amazing. And I think those testimonies should be shared. And I think those testimonies are incredible to hear. But what so many people don't follow up with is I received the miracle of freedom and I had the freedom to then step into my calling. And I think a lot of people receive those miracles without realizing they received those miracles and then go right back into their old lifestyle and fall back into those old addictions. Yes. And what I love the part he admitted, he was like, I received this miracle of freedom from my addictions. And but then over time, like that darkness slowly started to enter back into my life. That's when I got accountability. That's when I was like, no, I'm not going back into that. And so that's the part that I found so profound is that, he received the freedom from these addictions, but in that freedom, he chose to move forward the call of God on his life.
Yeah.
And so that to me is just, again, it talks about that maturity. And I love that, we got to hear my dad speak on, just kind of what masculinity should look like in the church. And then we got to see the person he mentored and really got the brunt of it, you know, and how that affected him by just following through. And so he also made a statement where he got the accountability, but it's 90% our work and 10% the accountability's work, right? And I thought that was so profound. And he didn't put all the work on the accountability. He made himself subject to his accountability. He made sure he went to his accountability for mentorship. If he was struggling or if he needed help, he went to the accountability. And I think that's just that's really what accountability is you have someone you can go to as opposed to you assign someone to come to you, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. I feel like, and it's absolutely true because I think people think accountability is babysitting, right?
Yeah.
It's hand holding, but it's not that. Accountability is you saying, "Hey, I need help, and I'm gonna come to you to provide for me with that help." And it's funny and it's interesting that I asked you to answer that first because, and obviously we're not gonna go into like the depths of it, but Shekinah is like one of the most accountable people on this earth. Like Shekinah. She can
I'm constantly texting Melissa.
constantly. And to me, I'm like, Shekinah,
Help me.
I love you. Like, I'm just like, you're fine. And she's like,
I messed up. I had a bad thought towards someone today. Help me.
and I'm like, me too, girl. Tell me who. No, but I actually love to hear because I know that it's coming from a place of a lot of authority when it comes from you. So that's really good. I know, Denise, that you're really big on accountability. So go ahead and chime in. What's churning in that stomach of yours?
I'm huge on accountability. I mean, in every aspect of life, the most successful people are held accountable or are mentored or coached by someone.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, it was, I grew up, and I'm going to probably reference this a lot throughout the podcast just because it's like second nature to me. I grew up playing competitive sports. Mm-hmm. So to me, being held accountable, being coached is like second nature. Like it's needed in life, you know? And so, and even in hearing Andre's, you know, accountability, one of the things that I've always admired about Andre, and it was one of the things that stood out since I met him, was his discipline.
Yeah.
When he's truly disciplined in something, it's like he's disciplined, right? Mm-hmm. So, and in doing that and holding himself accountable, clearly you can see the fruit. And I just truly believe that if you want to be fruitful in any area in your life, you definitely want to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable. And what that looks like is you go to that person for that mentorship, that coach, that advice, and then you have to do, like we were just mentioning right now, it's up to us to do the work and, you know, actually apply it. And so I just fully agree with you, ladies. I think it's huge and it's needed.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, see? Talk about your mans.
Yeah, I wanted to share a story about my awesome husband. There was a time when we were courting, and P-Lynn, she was Shekinah's mom, she was holding me accountable for a lot of healthy boundaries that I had to stick to. Mm. And my husband and I had a lot of struggles, and obviously we can get into that when the time is right or the podcast goes to that. But she would always hold me accountable. But there was some times that I would mess up and I would feel shameful to come to her. Mm. And guess who would snitch on me? My husband. But we were not married, but we were dating. And I remember one time I came to Pastor Linda and I was like, could you believe like this is what I did, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I know. She goes, Andre told me. And I'm kind of upset that you didn't tell me first. Honestly, you should have blocked him and everything first. It shouldn't have taken him to come to tell me. And I just was like, oh. And at first I was like upset with him. Like, why did you do that? But he is so disciplined. And he made it a point like, I really, truly care for you. And I believe that, you're getting those healthy boundaries. You're being held accountable for those healthy boundaries. And I really, really want you and desire that you stay accountable. So if I mess up, I'm going to be honest to your mentors mentors. And so I thought that was amazing. Like, okay, like who does that because they actually really do care for you?
Yeah.
You know?
That's really good. And I just want to speak on P-Lynn's behalf because I know that, as she says, she's like, hey, I'm not here to control your life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, all the time.
But there is a difference when you put somebody with that permission and with that place, right? Because P-Lynn, one thing that she always says, she's like, I'm not going to go to hell for you. So she takes her job very seriously,
yes,
right? And she should, right? And I think that's such a key point when you choose a person to hold you accountable. because it has to be somebody that's not going to feed into your whatever you're doing. It has to be somebody that's going to give it to you straight, because they first have fear of the Lord, right? And so if you're going to go, if you're going to, hey dude, like I need to stop drinking, and you're going to go to somebody who's still drinking, red flag.
Yes.
Red flag, red flag. Who you choose to sow into your life and to speak into your life is such a big deal, because their life will bleed into yours, because that's what you're looking into. And so for you to say, oh no, I need to separate this person from this, like they're good at this one thing. No, I think we're just gonna make this our tagline. How you do one thing is how you do everything. And so it's like, if you're going to somebody who's not living a godly life to the best of their ability. I'm not saying I'm not saying flawless. Like, we all have flaws and we all have our shortcomings. But like Denise said, is that person getting mentored by somebody? Is that person being held accountable? Because everybody here at this table is being held accountable by somebody, and that's really what a thriving society is people being mindful of each other, and sowing into one another. It's like, as you're going up, you're reaching for higher heights, and you're reaching towards somebody that is helping you get there, and then that person is reaching higher. And ultimately, we know that the ultimate high one and sovereign one is Jesus and God, and again, the beautiful Trinity of God. So definitely, as we're speaking about accountability, as you guys heard Andre talk about in the interview, he chose specific ones, right? It was people that he already saw that they could help him towards that, and so he made himself accountable to those people. And so Greater Works Christian Church is where it's at. Holla at your girls. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the phase 2 of the interview. I really appreciate that he did that, because it's actually helping me a lot. Shout out to Andre. Yes, so the first thing I asked him, what would be the first things that he would tell somebody that would want to be in his similar position, right? And I don't mean a duplicate life of what Andre's doing. Like, I don't mean that at all. But somebody that has a successful career, somebody that has a thriving family, somebody that is godly, obviously, first and foremost. And so the first thing that he said is, being in the will of God is what gets you to where you need to be. And so then I always try to place myself in the position of somebody who's just listening to that for the first time, right? Because Christianese, Christian circles, we hear that and we're like, oh, okay, that makes total sense. But to me, it's like, okay, well, how do you get into the will of God when you've never been in the will of God, right? And so then he touched on some good points, but I'm curious, what would you ladies say to somebody where it's like, hey, how can I, as a single woman, like, how would you tell somebody that's a single woman, or even somebody that doesn't have a thriving marriage, that didn't start in the will of God per se, like, what would be the first piece of advice that you would give them? I'll start with Yessi. I'll start with Shakaya.
First and foremost, it doesn't have to be difficult. Honestly, is take responsibility for yourself. Do what you know is the right thing to do. Be honest. Go to the scripture and you read the 10 Commandments, right? Like, it's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward. That's a great place to start. If someone's listening to this going, but how do I hear the word of God? How do I hear the will of God in my life? How do I hold myself accountable to that? How do I hear God's, what is he telling me to do? Let's start with the basics. It's literally written down, Yeah. And so I think just it starts with making the right choices. It starts by living a life of integrity. And as you step out into those things, God's going to start showing up, and you're going to start filtering in his voice going, oh, that was God. Oh, that was God there. Yeah. So I think it just starts with identifying areas where you can just do better. I can be more honest. I can, live a more life full of integrity. Yeah. I can give a little bit more to the poor. I can, wherever it is you feel that kind of tug of, I can do better in this area, start there.
Yeah, going back to start praying for your meals, right? Yeah. Something so simple as that. It does say, I forgot what book it says. I kind of want to say it's Romans. I need to get better at my citations. But in Romans, it says that he's written that every human being has a knowledge and awareness of God, right? And so because we're created in God's image, whether you deny him or not, every single person on this planet is created in God's image. And so that means that we all have a connection, whether it's a very, very small connection, whether it's a very big connection. God desires for us to be reconciled to him, right? And so I think wherever you're at, which honestly leads me to one of the...
But can I...
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to answer just because of the girls that I've mentored. I know for us, it's as Christian girls, it's easy to say, open up the Bible and do this. But I've literally mentored girls that don't even know how to do that. They wouldn't even know. And I'm not downing them. It's just how they grew up, right? Like
Right.
if I were to say, hey, go to the book of Psalms or read the 10 Commandments, like they've never heard that verbiage, 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
And so, and this is just my personal experience with the group of girls that I've had. So for me, I would say to those people that don't even know where to start in the Bible is find a church, find a spiritual mentor that you feel comfortable with.
Yes.
And where do you start? I mean, it can be in different places. I mean, it can be in different facilities. It can be in different centers. It can be in a church. Like, I'm sure that you know a friend that to some degree goes to a church or has something, and plug yourself in and find that spiritual mentor whose life is like reflects what you want.
Yes.
And then from there you have that one-on-one accountability to start, okay, well, where can I look for the 10 Commandments? What book is that in? And then literally showing them, okay, look, it's in the book of this, and guiding them, because there's people that literally have never opened up the Bible that don't even know where to look for a book, or even like the glossary, or even like the beginning, I forgot the name right now, where you see where all the books are at. They wouldn't even know where to start in that.
Yeah.
So that for me I would definitely direct them to a church, connect with a friend, and definitely find a spiritual mentor that is obviously has been in the faith for a long time and has fruit to back up the substance that they're saying.
Right.
And a track record, right?
Yes, a track record.
Yeah, like for example, what always gets me is these people that are selling like the latest fit drink, or you're gonna shed like 10 million pounds, and it's like, all right, well, I don't know, Sally, like come back to me when I see results, you know? Like, but it's the same concept. How much more with your spirituality, right? It's like if somebody's telling you, oh, God repairs marriages and does all these things, and he helps you, like, but their life is not producing that fruit. It's like, you know what? I'm just not.
Yeah, and that's one of my dad's famous sayings: is don't ask financial advice from someone who's broke.
Right.
And I think that's very key. Is when you look at somebody, preferably in the church, definitely in the church,
Yeah.
who's living a lifestyle that you go, I want that for my lifestyle. Approach them.
Yeah.
Approach them. Ask them out. Hey, like you're somebody that's highlighted in my life. I came here, whether you're new at the church or even going for a while, but you're really starting to step in. Go approach that person. Don't be afraid. Where it goes back to even dating. Like we're talking about just having that confidence to say hello.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can, how you find a mentor is the same way. Is you find somebody whose life reflects what you value and what you want for your life, and just approach them and say, hey, you've been highlighted to me, and God really highlighted you to me. Can I take you out for coffee? Can we just have a conversation? I would love to get to know you more.
Yeah.
Ask your mentor out on a date is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's true, because I think that just helps build a huge dynamic too,
Yeah.
Great dynamic, I should say. Okay, so another thing that he talked about is his jobs, right? How he first started well, I know these are not his only jobs, but JCPenney, and then from there to Chase, and from there he went to where he's at now. And one of the things that I've learned as I started at Greater Works Christian Church is that your job really is an identifier of where you are at in life. And I don't mean it as in like your intrinsic value as a human being, because we're all created with value, we're all created with worth, right? But where you're at with the wholeness in your heart, like just all these things. And so, like, as I mentioned in the thing, like, you're not, if a Christian were to come up to me and says, I'm doing OnlyFans, I'm gonna be like, okay, well, I don't know what kind of church you're going to, but
You better be preaching on there.
Yeah, exactly. The only fan you should be having is one on your ceiling, girl.
Yeah.
Or guy, whatever. Anyway, so I thought that was like pretty crucial, right? Because and we touched on it in the interview about the whole Adam and Eve thing. Adam, and sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit, but I think it meshes well. Because with Adam, God first created Adam, and well, commanded the things, and then created Adam, and then he was like, okay, now you get to name the animals and do all these things, and he told him to be fruitful and multiply and like all these beautiful things. And so then it said that the man Adam came to God, And then he was like, hey, like, everything here has a companion. What about your boy? You know? And so then that's when the Lord created Eve, and we know the story. Well, maybe you don't know the story. So he put Adam on a deep sleep, took the rib out of him, and created Eve as a helpmate, right? And so a lot of men, they want the Eve, but they still haven't learned how to take dominion, or for another word, they haven't learned how to take control over the situation that they're in. And I don't mean control where it's like I run the show, I'm the one that's like throwing out commands only, but take control as in learn how to till and build in the ground that you're in, right? So for example, at JC Penney, he said that he was there for like a total of like 5 years, I think. And so in the last year and a half, it said that I think that's when the words that he used was that he changed his perspective. So I'm assuming that during that time, that's when he got saved. And he was like, okay, what can I do here what can I do for God here? And what can I learn in this situation? And I know that for me, especially when I've been in situations where I feel like I've dropped the ball already, and it's like, oh no, like these people already know me a certain way. Like there's no way that I can come in and all of a sudden be God's shining light. You know what I mean? People, they're going to be like, you just had really good coffee today. Like relax. But I think that that's really crucial, and that really brings in a lot of hope, because it's like, the place that you're at right now doesn't have to be the place where you're at. And so those two questions that Andre asked, I think, are so essential in moving forward and getting into the will of God, right? Where it's like, one, what does God want to, what can I do for God here? And what can I learn here? So, yes, yeah, I know that you experienced a lot of that change with him, kind of with him, but not with him while he was at JCPenney. So, how was that experiencing it from like your perspective, and even just that principle? What does that mean to you?
Well, that's a good question. So I know a big thing about Andre is he worked at JCPenney, and I know that at the very beginning, it wasn't always like he wasn't the most hardest worker. On the other end, though, my sister did work with him, and she said that he actually taught her a lot of good things. So I always tell my husband, you actually did your job that you had to do there, and I'm glad he was there because, hey, we met, right? And then I got to meet everybody else, so that was cool. But I'm thankful because he actually did a lot of ministering in JCPenney that actually brought him to other places too. He made connections that we still network to this day. Which is amazing just from that time, and from getting to know people on a deeper level and on a silly level too. I think that's what helped open those doors for him. And then not only that, his perspective did change to the fact that he obviously wanted to achieve better. When he did get hired at Chase, he wasn't that happy because he knew where he wanted to go, and he had a burning desire for where his career is at right now. And the fact that he only got hired at Chase and it was part-time, it really frustrated him at first. But then he said, I'm going to make the best out of it here.
That's good.
And the fruit of it is, you guys have no idea, but this man saved like almost a whole year's salary worth just working there.
That's crazy.
Which is crazy. That's like what helped us buy the house. But it's crazy how much discipline he took just where he was at, because he was purposeful. He's like, God has me here for a reason. And then he also knew, like, God has me in finances for a reason. That's why I'm handling this much amount of money. And then he was promoted again because of his perspective. And something that Andre emphasizes a lot, not just to me, but to his team. And we had a conversation about this after his podcast, was that God really does care about your job and where you're at. Because what does he want you to do? He wants you to be an influence in that arena, right? And so God is not just content with you just working, let's just make an example. You're a bag boy today, but he wants to move you up. He wants to level you up. So what are you going to do as a bag boy there to get to where you can be an influence? Yes. You can be an influence to the people there, and your perspective is like, hey, how am I going to change you? You can network that way to get to the place where God wants you. Or he can even like promote you to manager, So it's a crazy thought to think about, that God really does care about your job and your situation. Yes. And that actually helped him because he understood, okay, I'm going to make the best out of where I'm at right now. He revamped his resume because, again, he was applying 2 years to this place where he's at right now. And that's like where he sees the will of God really come in. And the minute that he revamped it, the next week he actually got the job interview. Which is mind-blowing because we were hoping and praying for that, and it happened. So that's when you kind of know, like, okay, I think we're in God's will because God is opening doors. And that's, it just goes to show you when you seek God, well, like what Denise says, when you're about God's business,
Yes.
He's going to be about your business, right? He's going to be opening those doors, walking alongside you, making the impossible happen. And I really see that to this very day. Like, he actually just recently got recognition from the CEO. Less than 1% of associates in this company have been recognized by the CEO.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And you want to know why? Because of his personality. They said that he is such a go-getter, very interesting. Like, he has no problem talking to anybody, from janitor to CEO. Like, he doesn't treat anybody differently, and he likes to have fun where he's at, but he's also serious. So the fact that, you know, when you're in the God's will, God really does take care of you in all facets and will level you up so you can be an influence. So I think that's amazing. You know, like his testimony, I just want to add to that because I don't think he went further than he could have, and I'm sure he wanted to, but, you know, discipline Andre.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that's so important, because, you know, coming down to comparison, right? We all compare each other and we're like, hey, well, I don't have that, I can never do that. But what I love about that is that even the things that were wacky, right? In Andre, God used that in order to be able to open doors. And so many times and I'm not saying like you need to hone things in, right? Like there definitely needs to be some growth in that. Like, I'm not gonna, even though I love to have a good time and to make people laugh, like I'm not gonna do that at a funeral. You know what I mean? Like I need to learn how to discipline
Time
that
and
gift,
place,
time
yeah.
and place. And so it's crazy, but at the same time, like, I just using myself as an example, but having an ability to like make people laugh or whatever, it shouldn't, just because other people don't respond that way doesn't mean that I need to diminish myself for that. Instead, I just need to learn when God wants to use that, right? And so I think that's super key, especially for men. Like, you know, if God has hardwired you for certain things, like, well, both men and women, and then don't discredit those. Like, I think we've all been given a specific identity. We've all been given certain gifts, and we've all been given certain abilities, and it's not by accident. And so I love that you said that, and I love that you tied that in, because it's like when we would look at Andre and it's like, dude, like that guy is wild. He's crazy. Again, going back to like the outfits, and like just that in itself, right? But to see how that's what's getting him the recognition. Imagine if Andre would have like, if he would have been like, oh man, like I need to become like, what I'm picturing is SpongeBob when it becomes the normal SpongeBob. Like, what if he would have just become like, hey, how are you? Like the Matrix, you know, like the opposite of the Matrix. I have so many cartoons that are coming in my mind right now. That's crazy.
Or just stayed quiet. Because, you know, he always has something to say, something outlandish.
Yes.
And in these meetings, literally people like laugh. And these are people like serious meetings that people shouldn't be laughing at.
Yeah.
And they just laugh, and it's just like that comedic relief, you know, like that they needed. Or he makes light of a situation, or he gives different perspective and he opens people's hearts. Like, you know, kind of like what comedians do, you know?
Yeah.
In a way, yeah. But I just wanted to share, like, that really matters, and I did see that growth in him. So I know that you asked me, like, how does it feel for me to see that?
Yeah.
Like, started from the bottom, now we're here type of thing. It just makes me so excited because I do see the favor of the Lord on him, and he seeks God, like, all the time, you guys. Like, you guys have no idea. He's walking on the treadmill, reading and listening to the Bible. He's eating cereal while reading the Bible. Like, he's constantly seeing how he can like sharpen himself, you know, and he's always sharing like amazing revelation. And I love it because sometimes I actually like want to share like some of my revelation, and he's like, okay, but do you know the deeper meaning now? And so I'm like, oh, I guess my revelation wasn't good enough. But it's just amazing and profound that you can actually have those combos, and he seeks the Lord, and you can see that the Lord really, really knows that he's a man after his own heart.
Yeah, that's really good.
So that's what I see. So that's where I think the growth comes from, to be honest, because if he didn't have that heart, who knows where he would have been right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Denise or Shekinah, one of you guys can answer this, where it's like, did you ever have those moments where you're like, okay, like, and this is a rhetorical question because I know we've all had this, where you've just come to that moment and you were just like, okay, clearly what I'm doing it's not working out. And I need to turn this sinking ship around, right? And I actually think both of you guys are going to have some hot fire answers for this. So I'm just going to start with, Denise.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's countless times where
Yeah.
where it's been like that. I think obviously when I left the church and then I knew I was time to come back, like that was definitely a okay, turn around,
Yeah.
type of moment. In my marriage, in my relationships, I think it's a continual thing. To be honest, I think that when you start to get complacent or comfortable, or the moment that you think that you're like, oh, I got this figured out, you have that moment because God's like, first of all, like you don't like, you still
Right.
need me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so for me, it's just to answer your question, yes, I've definitely had those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yes. I think for me, most commonly, it's not so much that God turns me around and says, go do this, as much as he turns me around and says, go back. And because I'm all over the place, I like to travel, I like to do this, I like to move on to the next thing. And there's that, my season of maturity was God going, no, stay here.
Yes.
Stay right here. I had a job that I quite frankly hated. I hated my job. And the Lord really convicted me and said, do all things unto the glory of God.
That's so good.
So in hearing Andre's testimony, he honed that in, and he didn't like JCPenney anymore, and he was going out for other jobs, but that didn't make him a horrible employee. He actually got better. He actually honed in his skills. He actually took more responsibility. And with me, the same thing. I remember I had a job. I hated it. Hated the job. But the Lord was like, you're not gonna represent my name by not doing a good job or by leaving
true.
under bad circumstances. Or, and so I honed it in, and I was there for much longer than I wanted to. And you know what? God opened the doors for me to be able to minister to people. I was able to take the skills that I learned at that job into my next job, which was an even bigger blessing. And I know that if I didn't learn that in that place and I did leave when I wanted to, God would have just had me learn that lesson somewhere else,
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, that's how it is for me very often, is I'm just like, I want to move forward. I want to move on. I want to move to the next step. And God's just like, no, stay here and learn what I have for you to learn here. And I'm just going to say it, don't suck.
Embrace the suck, Marie.
Embrace the suck, But honestly, it's we get jobs or we get put in positions or where we're just like, we're ready to move on from this, Lord. And he's like, no, you're not. You need to hone in your skill. You need to discipline yourself here and be a positive light, because I feel like there's just some people who are just bad employees. They do the bare minimum. They hide in the break room, and it doesn't put God in a good perspective. You know what I mean? You're not giving glory to God. People are going to find out you're a Christian. Is this how all Christians are? I can't blame them.
relation.
Yeah,
or what?
exactly. And so, I don't want to be that person. And so, just understand that where God has put you, He's put you for a reason. You're learning some valuable things. And if you step into those things with a spirit of excellence, despite whether or not you like it, He will promote you like He did with Andre. He will promote you like He did with me. And I know He'll promote you like He did with Melissa. I know that she has a very similar testimony when it comes to working as well. So at the end of the day, whatever God puts you in, even if you don't like it, put a big smile on your face and be the best employee that you possibly can. Give people something to talk about positively so that when you say, I'm a Christian and I go to church, people are interested. People are invested in that. And it can put a positive light on what God is doing in your life and not a negative one. And that's ultimately what this is about, is bringing glory to God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's one of the things that one of my other cliche sayings that I live by is, I do everything unto the Lord and everything that I do, because at the end of the day, I'm going to have to go before God, and I'm going to have to give account for everything that He allowed me to have. And it's like, okay, how did I steward that? How did I steward my friendships? How did I steward my relationship with God? How was I a reflection? And I don't know who said this, but, it was probably somebody from ISOM. But one of the things that really impacted me in my walk was sometimes the closest thing that people will get, sometimes the closest thing that people will get to a Bible is you, like the way you walk out your life.
That's good.
And I think ever since I really heard that, realizing that I should be an embodiment, like what you were saying, Shekinah, of what Christ looks like, that really put that fear of the Lord in me. Oh my gosh, I have to, I'm not saying I'm afraid of anything, but walking in the type of reverence, that making sure that all that I am doing is a reflection of God. And honestly, I have testimonies of where I don't have to talk Christianese. I don't have to throw out God.
Exactly.
And people that are not Christian come and tell me. Like, I have friends that are not Christian. They're like, we just love being around you. Like, we love being around you. We've had like bad examples of other Christians, and I was turned off by Christians for so long. But just seeing how you are, like, you give hope that there are real Christians out there.
Yeah.
And I never had to say I was a Christian for people to realize that I was a Christian, right? And so I just wanted to add another thing that you said that you blogged about, Melissa, because I'm sure people are thinking like, okay, well, what if I'm not in a position like Andre or like these other examples that we're going to give? You wrote in your blog that a janitor inside God's will has the same ending as a famous person inside God's will.
Yes.
That was fire. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by God based off the calling that he gave you.
Yes.
And so for you to think that being a janitor is less important than a famous person, like, you're only fooling yourself. Because if that's where God has asked you to be, that's where you're going to be, where you should be, right? Doing God's kingdom.
Right.
So I just wanted to add that.
That's really good. And it, God uses janitors a lot to speak with me, because I remember one day I don't know, I was like a few years into the church, and I got a key to the church. And I was feeling like, all like, yeah, your girl got a key. Because to me, it just signified responsibility, right? It signified trust. It signified that I was allowed to be able to be there. And then one day, as I was praying to the Lord, he was like, he's like, you got a key. That's really good. He's like, but never forget that it's the janitor that holds all the keys. They can enter into any space. They can enter at any time, at any closet, any office. And I was like, Lord, that is so, so profound.
Yes.
Because, and obviously we're speaking to whoever is feeling very lowly, and again, bringing it back to the dating thing, it's God sees you where you're at. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're hoping to get out of this, right? Because even with Andre's story is a lot different than mine, is a lot different than other men in the church, because we all have different starting points, right? And so to compare Andre's starting point to your starting point to my starting point to other men's starting point is not fair. But the only thing that you can possibly do is really just have a heart that's devoted to the Lord. And I know that for men, that may sound very, very feminine, right? How do you devote yourself to the Lord? But it was funny because I was talking to Pastor Linda, and we were talking about men singing. And I was like, Pilin, like, how is that manly? And she's like, that is one of the manliest things. Yeah. She's like, because David sang in the Bible, and David is known as a warrior. So she started using the example of David, and I was like, Pilin, like, that is, in that moment it was a little bit hard to hear, but once I took it to the Lord, I had to start realizing that if we're starting to counteract culture, right, why are we still allowing culture to tell us what certain roles look like? And or what certain things should look like, or how things should, because at the end of the day, and again, Denise, I'm very grateful that you brought up that blog, right? Because that is really the season and where In the Vine dating really came from, where it's like, at some point you really just have to give everything up before the Lord, right? And I think that's the greatest treasure that any man, any woman can ever find, coming to the point where it's just like, you know what? Yeah, I do want, and of course I'm using very, very small things in the grand scheme of things, but I do want the cars, I do want the houses, I do want the success, and blah, 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 blah. But that in eternity, as Denise was saying, like when you get to that, in front of that throne room, right? In front of that throne, and you're before the Lord, because it says that every knee shall bow and every tongue will confess his name. I remember the Lord told me that once. He's like, you keep reading it like if it's only wickedness. He's like, you're also going to bow before me, and you're also going to confess my name. And I was like, Lord, like, you're savage this morning. Like, it's 8 a.m. Like, you're already talking to me like this? Sheesh. Buy a girl coffee. But it's the truth. And so I remember when he told me that, like, again, the fear of the Lord just fell on me. And I was like, wow, God really doesn't play. He really doesn't play. And I think there's fear in that, and there's also comfort in that. Because with God, it says that perfect love casts out fear. And so it's funny because we're kind of, it sounds like we're circling around, but it really boils down to this whole like dating and this whole being married, because it's kingdom minded. You know, the story of marriage is the story of God and his church. It's the story of God and his bride. And that relentless, because, you know, you can look at yourself and you're like, oh man, I'm hot, like I'm all these things and blah, 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 blah. But I have to remind you, like, there's a story in the Bible where it says that a rich young ruler came to God. And the rich young ruler had everything set. Like, he had riches, he had these things, like, and in today's society it'd be a rich person coming to the church, and all of a sudden you can see your young adults ministry flourishing. Like, all of a sudden, like, you can get a school, like a bus for people to get to the church. But it said that Jesus told him, sell everything and follow me, right? And that to me is so profound, because many people are not willing to let go of their own identity, whether it be broken or whether it's a whole identity. And many people are not willing to let go of the ideas that they themselves have in their minds over things that they desire so badly. Like, and I think that's just the story of God, right? Where it's like we've created these ideas in our mind, and I'm not like the things that Andre went through, where it's just like he went through J.C. Penney to Chase to where he's at now. You know, yeah, there's success in that, but the reason why he was able to open those doors is because God's kingdom was amplified. And so it's not because God was like, oh, yes, my son, I want you to have nice things only. Like, I want you to be able to show up and show out. Like, that's not God's heart at all. It's like, where you're in that place, are you going to confess God's name? And there's, again, another scripture where it says, if you deny my name before man, I'm going to deny you before my Father. And so those are really the things that should be leading our lives, right? Because those are the things that really bring in success. And it goes back to the janitor being able to be in whatever space they're in. And like, hey, you know what? When people show up, it's going to be God's kingdom. Like, even at work, when I know the bathrooms aren't cleaned or anything, and I show up the next morning, I'm like, wow, like, that's so dishonoring. You know what I mean? Somebody's not doing their job, and it's effective. Like, it affects the morale. Like, it really has. But there's this other lady that comes in, and every time she comes in, I'm like, oh God, because I'm an introvert, okay? But she's like, hey, how are you? Blah blah blah, and so then she forces me to talk, and I'm like, dude, like, are you the Christian or am I the Christian? Because I don't know, but I love it. I love it, right? Because, you know, if I was immature in that area, I could be like, oh my God, like, I have to blah blah. No, but I have to show her. I have to show up and be like, oh yeah, you know, going through this, going through that, like, and allow her to be herself as well. You know what I mean? And so I think that's the story, the beautiful story of Christianity, and the beautiful story of what Andre was depicting when he was sharing his testimony, where it's like, you know, you really just have to, and I'm going to beat this to a pulp, but honor where you're at, honor where the Lord has placed you, and honor the people that he's put in you. If you're having a difficult coworker, if you have difficult parents, if you have difficult siblings, if you have difficult wife already, difficult husband already, honor where you're at. I love what, sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm just one more thing.
Preach.
Jordan Peterson, right? He has this thing where it's like, he was doing an interview, Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking about how a man is like bashing on his wife, and he's like, oh, she's not doing anything. And he's like, the one that looks like an idiot is not your wife, it's you. Because you're the one that chose her. You're the one that made the conscious decision to make this woman your wife. And so the fact that you're not able to help her develop, that's a reflection of you. And so he said that with that, but we can say that at any job. Like, if your boss is being rude and your boss is not helping you, I'm sorry, that sucks. But wherever you go, you're going to find difficult people. You have to learn to grow in that area. Like, not every farmer is going to find great ground. Like, they're going to have to plow. They're going to have to break forth. And so it's only the ones that have broken forth that have ever left a legacy worth repeating, you know?
Yeah.
So,
think about your boss as God, not as your physical boss.
Yeah, which goes back to doing things unto the Lord. Work as unto the where's God, I think, what, Colossians or something. So, yeah. Before I move on, anybody want to add to that?
I just know that he one of the biggest things is the last year and a half, right, at JCPenney, he changed his perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot to do with also just dating in general, because a lot of people can think like, you know, there's not enough men out there, there's not enough women, there's not the right people. But again, the way we do everything, we have to make the most out of the situations we're in. So if you right now don't see, you know, a possible, you know, spouse, or like somebody that can potentially be your boyfriend or girlfriend, or you can court, like, what are you doing with that time? What are you investing in yourself? And I think in the Vine Dating is highlighting that, like, we're here for you to invest in yourself. Like, we're setting that environment that that thought, that everything, like we're sparking something in people.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree. And I like that you brought it back to the dating perspective. How are we talking about a job? How does it apply to my dating life?
Yeah.
Everything.
But everything, exactly.
Yeah.
How we've been mentioning, how we've been really plowing it, how you do one thing, how you do everything. And, I just want to go back to the King David. God didn't select King David until he was fruitful and faithful as a shepherd first.
Yeah.
He worked excellently as a shepherd. He protected his sheep. He fought off bears and lions for the sake of these animals, and if he was faithful and produced excellence in that small area, he was able to be blessed as a king.
Yes.
You take care of my sheep, how much more will you take care of my people?
That's right.
And I think even in that, I think so often we have these men and women who are like, oh, I'll make these changes after I get married.
Oh, yeah.
And that's such a toxic mindset. So it's a broken mindset, and it'll lead you into problems that you didn't have to go through if you just handled where you're at now with excellence. And then God, if you're supposed to be married, you're called to be a husband, you're called to be a wife, start acting that out now in the area that you're in now, and God will bring you that blessing. But God's not going to bring you that blessing if you're not taking care of what you need to take care of here. Mm-hmm. He's not going to put you over here on a higher level to be accountable to a wife or accountable to a husband if you can't be accountable to a mentor, to a boss or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I would say this for both men and women. If the person that you want to date isn't being mentored, don't.
Yeah.
Don't, because then I think they're going to put you in a place that you don't need to be in. You know what I mean? Like, and so I think for accountability's sake, right? Coming back to accountability, I think it's I've seen all the relationships that I've seen flourish, both the man and the woman were getting mentored in one way or another.
Yeah.
And so I think that
Right.
that is really crucial.
Yeah, because if the partner you're trying to marry can't be held accountable to a person you can see, how are they going to be held accountable to a God they cannot see?
Exactly. Yep.
So for them, if they can submit, it's just already starting off the foundation without there being submission.
Yep.
Because the same way that a wife has to submit to the husband has to submit to the Lord for there to be a healthy dynamic of submission from the top to the bottom.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm not saying the wife is the bottom, but just like, as a pyramid
Right,
or,
yeah.
from the children and so forth.
Completely agree. Okay, so I know we kind of went really deep into that one, but now we're
Someone needed to hear it.
Someone needed to hear it. But this one's gonna be fun, and I can't wait because my girls. When I tell you my girls are passionate about this, they are passionate.
It's coming.
I feel like if we have Ramsey, hopefully you can add a ding, ding, ding. Because I feel like we're about to enter rounds with this one. Okay, so one of the things that Andre said was that men and women cannot be friends. And so I know how every single person in this table feels about that. And I have a testimony from that, thanks to my girls looking out for me for that. But I'm just going to start in order because I just want to hear it all. I'll start with Denise.
Oof. I've said since day one that a guy and a girl cannot be friends. Like, that is something that I am very vocal about. I have a niece, Eliza, who's like 20 something. Till this day, she calls me. And one of the things she's always telling me is like, Nina, because I'm her godmom, like, godmom, you're so right. Like, a guy and a girl cannot just be friends. I said, I know. And honestly, I'm going to throw it out there. I have yet to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
I have yet to be proven and if there is a case, please email us. Let me know. I would
Someone
like to hear
has to be lying in that.
Oh, yeah, for
Somebody's
sure.
lying, but I mean, honestly, just one. I've never seen it work. I mean, you can try to start off as friends, right? But at some point, either the guy's gonna fall or a girl's gonna fall in for that guy or whatever.
Yep.
Because that's how we're wired by God. We're wired. A man is wired to pursue. Like, a woman's like wired to like wanna, to feel pursued, right?
Yeah.
So to say that a guy and a girl can just be friends, for me, is saying God's a liar. Like, you're going against God's design.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably like very heavy, but that's just how I feel about it.
Yep. We love it. We accept it. We encourage it. Well, not the man and female friendships,
We
but
gotcha.
what she said, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yesy.
Yeah, I believe during your singleness, during your courtship, and during marriage, not allowed, not accepted. And I also think it's really sad when, and I know this because I used to think that, is when a girl says, I can't have any girlfriends. Like, they're all drama. That's why I have a bunch of guy friends. But there always is going to be that person that ends up liking you or you liking them, feelings get hurt. Like, it always leads to that. Always. Like you said, it's never been proven wrong. And I think that even with myself, like, my husband and I were friends beforehand. Yes, we passed those boundaries sometimes. And again, we started off as friends. Look at where we're at now.
Yeah.
Like, obviously doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Holy Spirit, speak through me. No,
So funny.
I think we've all been there, right? Every one of us at some point have believed that we could be friends with a guy. We would just be friends, right?
wanted
And
to be the
someone,
exception.
and we wanted to be the exception. We've heard it, we saw it. We were just like, but he and I have understanding. We've discussed our boundaries, and we understand. Like, there's an understanding. I used to be that girl that would hang out with. I was a guy's girl. I was that girl that could never get along with other women, and I was like, I prefer men. Blah 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 blah. In that state, I will admit there was a brokenness. I couldn't get along with other women because I was broken. You know, we constantly preach, we constantly teach, and I hear it said all the time, men need men, and everyone can agree. But for whatever reason, when we say women need women, we have so many women go,
It's so weird. Yeah.
and it's weird. Women need women. You know, as much as we preach men need men, women need women. There was a brokenness in me that determined that I couldn't spend time with other women, and I made excuses for why I couldn't do that. But that was just a brokenness. And then I have no problem vocalizing my boundaries or establishing boundaries. So I didn't have a problem saying, hey, like this, we're just friends. This is platonic, you know, and they would have an agreement back. But
You would tell them, don't fall in love with me?
yeah, pretty much, don't fall in love with me. It's fine, you know. No, but
Getting strong Usher and Little John vibes right
yeah, but like
now. Okay.
in that sense, there was that brokenness of I want to be pursued without the commitment. I want the attention without the commitment. And how many women are in that field where they're just like, I like the attention, or they complain, I can't find a good man. Well, you're probably friends with one of them. Seriously. But also, this is very passionate for me. I have so many people in my life who argue this with me. And you're right, I have yet to see it work. I have not seen it work one time without a single person getting hurt through that process. And so it's what we've stated in our past podcast is, you know, you attract what you put out.
Yeah.
And when you are broken and you can't get along with other women, you're attracting broken men. Because the men, and reverse the roles, right?
So
like,
good.
I talk to
Yes.
women because I'm a woman. We said it before. Please reverse the roles if it applies to you. But the men who are attracted to that and are okay with being friends also have a brokenness in them, where they kind of get to that point where, like, well, I'm halfway in. I mean, might as well just stay here. It's better than nothing, right? Like, they have that brokenness in them, and that's sad because men, you deserve better. It's okay to tell a woman, I'm not okay with just being friends. If you don't want to date, I want to go put myself out there somewhere else. That's a healthy response. And that kind of friendship level between a man and a woman is just extremely unhealthy and is extremely broken. And I used to have an agreement with, I had a friend who I was very close with, and he was a guy. And we had this agreement of when we start dating other people, we'll just cut this off because that's not appropriate, right? Like, healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah.
How broken is that, though, to say, hey, Melissa, I can be friends with you until someone else better comes along?
You know what?
Not
Let me help
only-
you. Let me help you. Today is the day that somebody else is going to come along.
But exactly. And so, you know, you have these guys and girls who have that's a really common standard within platonic relationships of like, hey, we'll always still love each other. We'll be friends. But we just know that once we start dating other people, we'll kind of like, we'll cut this off on that level. And one, to be making that proposal is toxic. And then to accept that proposal is toxic. And that's just guaranteed to fail all the way around. So it's just, I've Go ahead.
Let's talk about the fact that you even have to make that proposal.
Exactly.
It shows you,
Exactly.
right, that it's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that
Yeah.
in itself for me is like red flag.
Yeah. that's-
Absolutely. And I
People are
take
wild.
responsibility. I had that friendship.
Yeah.
I've had those friendships with guys.
Same.
And I've had those understandings. And we thought it was healthy because those boundaries were well communicated. And then there's been times where I've hurt guys. There's been times where I've even been hurt. And it was when I got hurt that I learned my lesson. And God was like, see, you know, and that's when I was like, oh, that's so toxic. And If I were to have this kind of relationship with another woman, that would be horrible. There's no way that I would be friends with another woman who I'd say, hey, we can hang out and talk until someone better comes along. Is that okay?
That's a really good perspective, yeah.
You know, and it's so just think about it in that sense of, if you were to say this to, as a woman, saying that to another woman, would that be okay? It shouldn't be okay with another man. Certainly not. So it's just not good. It's not good, and it's completely normal, and it's completely healthy. It communicates healthy boundaries and confidence to be able to say, honestly, I'm not interested in just being your friends because I do like you. So I'm just gonna, I'm gonna take my leave, and I'm gonna go make myself available elsewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna get
or the ball's in your court.
Yeah, exactly.
I like you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Without actually telling them.
It's just, I can go off. I can go.
No, it's
So
really
just
good. It's really good.
take it
And
away.
I just wanna say, cause it's just funny to this
Are
day.
you gonna share the
Yeah,
story?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Because this guy's like a proverb in our circle of friends. Okay, so there was this guy that I had met and that I was dating. You're welcome. Like we said last episode, I'm only here for entertainment. And and I remember I had him over at my house. And I had my friends there, and so they started roasting the guy, right? I was like, have at it. And so then, well, not roasting, but just asking him. Interrogating him. There you go. And so they asked him, I think Yessie was like, do you have a best friend or something?
Yeah, I think I asked him if he has or what do you think about having a friend of the opposite sex?
Yes.
Is what I asked him.
And so then that's when he said that he had a girl best friend. And so to me,
Melissa's head flipped right away.
I was like, oh, okay. So then I looked at Yes, and she was like, oh, like obviously she didn't, I mean, we didn't go deep into it. But afterwards she was like, like that's not a good thing.
Red flag.
A red flag. And so then I was like, I don't know, like blah, 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 blah. But other things ended up going down. And so I ended up.
He was defending it. He said, no, not at all. Like, we're like, that never happens. I think we all said that to him, right? We're like, that never happens. Like, someone's bound to catch feelings. It always happens. And he's like, no, never. No, that's not what we do.
Yes. So then, again, it didn't end up working out with this guy. And so then I didn't say anything because it wasn't really about that, but it was other things. And so then I started praying, right? Because that's how you keep your heart from growing bitter. You pray.
Yes.
And so then I prayed for this guy, and I was like, Lord, like I pray that you would bring him the right person. Like if it's that girl, then I pray that you would just open their eyes to each other, because at this point they're both being delulu. They're both being delusional, right?
Yeah.
And so then I think that was like November. By December, they were already coupled up. And I was like, you're welcome. You have an intercessor for your relationship. But no, but the thing of the matter is.
And then she messaged you and said, thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've been through some things.
Yeah.
Pray for your girl.
But it happened. He
Thank you for
proposed.
opening his eyes.
This is why we're in a podcast.
And they're married now.
And now they're married. Yeah.
So,
and I have a lot of stories like that. So
We have not been proven wrong.
we have not been proven wrong. I am a legitimate matchmaker. Just so you guys know, I have countless stories. Not just in that area, but yeah, I definitely am a matchmaker. So November 18th, if you didn't buy your ticket, there will be other ones.
Yes.
If you want one-on-one professional matchmaking, holla at your girl. It comes in the form of mentoring.
Yes.
But
Can I
anyway,
just add one more thing to that on the topic?
sure.
Message to women. Again, reverse the rules, guys. I'm just talking to women because it's easy. Message to women. If you're having a hard time finding the right guy, but you have a lot of guy friends, that's your problem, because no good, godly, masculine man is going to come into your life, see you surrounded by a bunch of other men, and want that. So it's time to start setting boundaries. It's time to start surrounding yourself with other women, godly women, getting a woman mentor, and stepping into that role as a woman. Because, I mean, let's be honest, a guy comes into your life and sees that you're surrounded by other guys and is okay with that. Yeah, it's a little awkward. So if you're having a hard time finding the right guy, look at all the men around you. Either A, take your pick, or B, get rid of them all. Honestly, like seriously, it's either pick one or none, because at this point you're really setting yourself up for failure, and you're weeding out a lot of potentially good, honest men, because they're looking at your life going, she's got a lot of male attention, and that's not healthy. And if you attract a guy that is okay with that, he's not healthy. So I just wanted to give that message to the women. If you're having a hard time finding the right guy in your life, start looking around at all the men in your life and see how close are you allowing these men in your life, and how are the women in your life, because good, godly, honest men look at that. They don't just look at you, they look at your relationships as well. So you need to look at your relationships as well.
Yep.
That's good. I feel like this triggered a few people, though.
I honestly,
Hence my message.
And right here, I feel it in my gut that
Give us the feedback, you guys.
Yes,
You guys know what to do.
Don't turn us
hear
off
it.
just
Yeah.
yet, but and just to soften it a little bit, just a little bit. We do understand that it's difficult, right? Because now there has to be some introspection, and now there has to be boundaries being set, and so along with that, there has to be some inner healing that takes place, and everybody here at this table is speaking out of a place of understanding. Like, we're not just throwing out these things and expect people to just catch it and run with it. We understand that there's a process of time, but we understand as well that there is an honor that you need to restore to yourself, right? And so for me, if I didn't have Yessie, that would have been like, hey, you know what, like, that's a red flag, and I wouldn't pondered on that, then I would have, God only knows what in the world would have happened, because yes. No, but really, like, pay attention to the women in your life, pay attention to the men in your life, because that really is a reflection of you. Like, who you are is who you hang out with is who you are. And
then you also reap what you sow,
Yes.
right? And you're really big on that. And I'm coming from a place too where I used to have a guy best friend, and obviously didn't turn out well. And so obviously I had to cut him off before I got married. And so it really just made me think, like, man, like, that sucks, because I don't want my kids to reap what I've sown in the past, or even myself, right? It's like, that's not fair to that guy. That wasn't fair to either party, to be treated in such a manner. Because back to what you always say, Melissa, when you really realize that each person is like a son or daughter of God, like, are you really okay with treating the son or daughter of God in such a manner?
Right.
And maybe the other person is, but doesn't give you the right to do that.
Exactly.
So I love that. And I was going to say that, girls, my experience as well is women that say that they can't be friends with other girls, there's a brokenness in them.
Yeah.
And we're not saying that from a place of condemnation.
Exactly,
Actually, it's from a place of truth to set you free, to help, because the truth is what sets you free. So if you've never seen it from those eyes of like, wait, is there a brokenness? Then maybe start looking and ask God. If you got triggered, there's a brokenness.
Yes.
So ask God to help you see where that stemmed from.
Yeah.
Did you not have a good father figure? Did you not have a good mother figure? Like, try to ask God, or even a mentor. Okay, where is that brokenness stemming from? Why am I feeling that way? And a lot of the times you realize that it comes from you don't want to be vulnerable, because with women you tend to be more vulnerable.
Yeah.
With men you don't, right?
Yeah.
Men, it's vulnerability in a different way, in different
Right.
things. But with women, there really is this vulnerability of sharing emotions, sharing thoughts, sharing feelings, sharing all of these things. So if it's hard for you to be vulnerable in that sense, then maybe that's where the brokenness is stemming from.
Yeah, and Denise, I love that you touch on that, because it's not just the vulnerability, it's the competition aspect, right?
Yes.
Because the moment that you open up to another woman, you put yourself in a position to be looked down as a woman. And so I'm not proud to say it, but at the same time I am. Like, every single person in this table with me, the reason why they're on this panel with me is because I've had problems with them. Like, we've had the hard discussions, we've had the confrontations, we've had these things. Like, to this day, like, it was so funny. I just texted Denise like a couple days ago, and I was pouring out my heart to her. She was like, "Dude, like, I'll slap you," and I was like, "Thank you, that's what I needed." But it's because, like, we're afraid of being looked down upon. But that's why it's so important. Like, just because there's conflict and because there's confrontation, it doesn't mean that it's a bad friendship. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that you need to throw that away. It means, like, even Yessie, when we were setting up for the event, she shows up and she's like frantic, and she's like, okay, but she's like, I'm not gonna respond like this because I know you're gonna respond like this. And I was like, no, but I don't want to respond like that because you're like, but it took a lot for us to get to that place, for us to be able to honor each other in places where we're stressed.
We were even, as we were setting up, we were actually making like fun of each other because of an argument we've had like years ago. Remember?
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
not my
But
best moment.
there's a sense of trust with all of us,
Exactly.
right? Like, there really is. Like you said, we're not in competition. All of us here understand our roles.
Yes.
We understand what we're called to do. We're here to complement one another. And I think that like we've created a space where even like if I'm not agreeing with something, or if I'm like, okay, wait, help me understand your perspective because I'm seeing it this way, you know? So there's this, it's everybody's gonna fight, everybody's gonna disagree, but it's what you do in those disagreements that really determine the type of friendship that you're gonna have. So I love that you said that about the competition,
and we actually caught that on our last episode when you corrected me, and I love that you did when I said that women can do it all, and you said I'm actually going to disagree with you, Shekinah. I love that you did, because right there in that moment I thought this is an example of what we're trying to put out there, is that we have that relationship with one another where you can correct me and I'm not just like, how dare you? You're just trying to one up me. You're how, you know, like you did it out of love, and you did it out of it, like, and that's how I received it. And so that's the kind of friendships that we're encouraging in the Vine. Is that?
Yeah. Hot fire.
So good. We do need to start winding down a little bit. So I'm just going to touch on just two more things, and then we're going to talk about the event. So excited about it. So one thing before we go into that is, let's see, there's so many that I just want to, the risk in choosing somebody to settle down with. I think that's big, because a lot of people, it goes back, did we talk about this in the last episode where it's like, we did, where it's like, you never know if somebody else is going to come along or blah, blah, blah. But I love that Andre touched on the risk versus reward. He's like, because you have to take a risk whenever you choose somebody, whenever you say yes to somebody, that is a risk. And so then while he was speaking, the Lord showed me that, where it's like, you know, it really, and again, please, like, I'm not saying that if you put in all the work, if the other person doesn't put in any work, then whatever. But at the end of the day, it comes down to clear conscience, right? And understanding, again, that the seeds that you sow, they're going to produce a harvest. And the Bible talks about that those who plant with tears are going to reap joy. And so wherever you're at, whether, you know, the other person, you're already committed or whatever, and it's not working out, like, you need to understand, like, you need to do your part to do your part, right? And that's a whole spiel, and I already see the future episode with this, and it's just amazing. But anyway, coming back to this moment, there is always going to be a risk when you say yes to somebody, when you decide to choose somebody, when you decide, but there's also risk in not doing that. And I think not taking risks, and that in itself is already such a problem, right? Because, you know, God put us on this earth to be fruitful and to multiply. And so for you to prevent that from happening, for you to choose that, like, you really are hating yourself. As Denise was saying earlier, you're coming against your own design in that area, because there is this innate desire for us to be able to reproduce ourselves in other people. And that is the overall thing that we were put on this earth to do, to have dominion and be fruitful and multiply. And so if that is you, if you, like, even if, you know, you're, again, coming back to this event and you're like, dude, like, I was too scared to be able to go to this event. Like, I didn't want to put myself out there. It was way too vulnerable. If you can't do it in a setting where it's controlled, everybody's doing the same thing, there's privacy, and with people that genuinely want to see you win in life, then there is a brokenness there. There really is. And I'm not saying this in a derogatory way. Honestly, it's kind of like a friend, like, concerning way, where it's just like, hey, like, you really should pay attention to that, because there's this saying in Spanish where it's like, para todo hay gusto, which means, like, somebody has a taste for everything. Like, somebody somewhere is going to like that. And so who you are and what you bring to the table, there's somebody out there that wants you, that desires you, that the moment that they see you, they're going to be like, dude, like, where has this person been my entire life, you know? And
they check off everything off my list.
Yeah, they check off the important things, the important things off of your list. And so I think, give yourself that opportunity, please. Like, all of us here have put ourselves in a position where we really put ourselves out there, and there's been many times that we've been left out to dry, honestly. And I'm not, and those areas were not pretty. Those times were not the best. Like, there definitely has been lots of sorrow, and there's been lots of brokenheartedness, but at the same time, there's no point in giving up. Like, why would you allow brokenness to determine your happiness? Like, that to me is the craziest thing, the craziest pattern that you could ever do. It's like, oh, I've been broken so many times, like, that I'm not gonna have room for joy. You've tasted brokenheartedness so much that you deserve joy. Why not do it again? Why not risk it again? Why not try it again? Now, if you're going for the same type of people, then therein lies the problem, okay? But change something, right? It's like, okay, well, you know what? I've been going out to the bars and I've been doing this and I've been looking for this type of girl and it's not working. So let me try something different. Let me go to In the Vine. Let me see if they know anybody that they can hook me up with. Like, let me see if I can just go to church on Sunday and maybe men, like, I don't know. But there is going to be risk. And we're not saying that, like we said in the very first episode, we're never going to romanticize this. We're never going to say that there's not going to be any pain. We're never going to say that. But what we're saying is that it's worth it. Like, everything in God is worth it because God can use the good, the bad, and the ugly for his glory. And ultimately, that's what we've been placed on this earth for, is to bring God glory. Our children, our wives, our husbands, it's all to glorify the Father. And it's all to depict a picture of Jesus and his bride. And so the moment that you put that in your forefront, it's the moment that I believe there's going to be breakthrough, because you're also going to see yourself as somebody that plays into a larger picture on this earth. You know, we're not just called to go to work. We're not just called to do all those things. Like, I think it's, I don't know the book, but it's the one that's always talking about sorrows and all these things. What is it? It's not
Lamentations?
Lamentations, where the guy's like just lamenting about life, and at the end he's like, you know what, I've discovered that the best thing to do is enjoy what God has given us and to be able to live a life that's pleasing unto him. And so what has God given us? He's given us the ability to procreate, to be able to pour ourselves into other people, to have relationships. And so if you're in a place of isolation, I was the queen of isolation. And the moment that I started stepping out, I kid you not, I started encountering so many different problems where I was faced with relational, not just relational like man and woman, but friendships, like people that I loved. I started facing all those things because there's such an attack on that. The enemy wants to keep you isolated and wants to make you feel like nobody's gonna ever understand you. Those dark thoughts that you're having, like there's no healing for that. The moment that somebody hears those dark thoughts, and to me, like, that's such a lie from the pit of hell. Like, it really is. And so there will be resistance. Like, I know that we don't talk about this much yet, but there is very real warfare. There is a real enemy that is warring against your soul. And so the number one tactic that the enemy uses is isolating you, is telling you that there's nobody in this world for you. And so whether it be a spouse, whether it be a friend, like, there is a community out there that is waiting for you. There is a community out there that is like crying out for whoever you are to come in and for you to bring your giftings. And that's where we find our identity. We find our identity in community. You do not find it in, self-help books. Like, those things after some time, like, you're going to have to put it into practice. Okay. No more self-help books, people. Let's get into the word. Let's get into a church and let's get to freaking work. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into my TED Talk. Okay, and the second thing that I'm going to talk about, one of the things that final thoughts that Andre said was singleness is not a time to relax; it's a time to build. And so I'm just going to let you guys duke it out. Who wants to close us out with that one?
Well, I think it just goes back to what we just talked about with the job thing, right? You have a better job out there, so do well in the job that you have now. If you know you're called to be a husband or a wife, start putting that into practice now. What does God want me to do now to step into that calling? So it's absolutely right. God's not going to bring you into a place of blessing if you can't even handle what the little bit he's given you down here.
Yes.
So do it with excellence. Everything you do with excellence. Whether it's you have a job, whether you're part of a church, start volunteering, start getting involved, start going to the cell group, start going to the midweek services. In your family, start honoring your parents, start helping around in the house. Whatever you're in right now, whatever God has you in right now, do with absolute excellence. Yes. And when you can master that, and you can, maybe not master, but, do well as you possibly can do, God will go, okay, now you're ready to take care of your spouse. Now you're ready to step into this place. Don't just sit there. Don't just sit in, like my dad used that example, don't just play video games all day and then like, oh, I'll stop playing video games when my wife comes along. That's just a really broken concept, and things don't get easier when you get married.
Right.
I know that our two married ladies here can totally agree with that. If things don't get easier, you think that they do, and a lot of single people think that they do. And so... No.
Now that actually, if I can add to what you're saying, because this has been burning in my heart. I had said in one of the first podcasts, and I still stand true, that your past does not have to dictate your future. Mm-hmm. However, your unresolved past will affect your future. So what you're adding to what you're saying, it's singleness is a perfect time to close the doors or even revisit the doors, right, of your unresolved past that needs to be dealt with so that it does not affect your future. Because I promise you that the enemy will use all of those unresolved trauma, all those open doors to hinder what you're trying to create and build. That's kingdom.
Yeah.
Yep. I love that. So good. Do you want to add one last thing?
Just what Denise said, I think that's powerful, that's good, and not only in your marriage, but also your children are going to have to fight through the battles that you didn't fight. So it's just fight it when you're single, make those relationships better with anybody you can, and I even take a cooking class. Just do something, just better yourself in any way.
Class. We have that too. We have that at the church too. We got it all. We got it all. All right. So before we sign off, we do want to give you guys some tips for the upcoming event, November 18th. For our listeners that are attending, we're so excited. During the weekend, I met with, because we're going to have like mocktails and all that. It's going to be so cute, charcuterie board. And so I met with Helping Hands, which is a business run by one of the ladies that we know. Her name is Sue. Shout out to Sue. She's the best. And she has such a gift of making the most isolated, lowly person, making them feel like they're worth $1 million. And that is a woman that is currently setting up the charcuterie board, setting up the bartending, and her husband's going to be there too, who also has such a huge heart for people. And so we're bringing in people that see value in other people. And Yessie and I was working till midnight, Shekinah and I doing the most, trying to get these forms out. Denise making sure we're staying out of jail, praying, and her intercession team praying for you guys. Like, there's so much that we're expecting, and just the level of resistance that we've been feeling just shows me the level of breakthrough that we're gonna have, not just for ourselves, but most importantly for everybody that's attending. And so we can't wait to hear your guys' testimony. So here are some tips. First tip that Denise actually brought this one up, is the foundation that you start out with and the foundation that you lay is the foundation that your relationship will be built upon. So Denise, in the context of the event, how do you want to interpret that to our listeners?
Don't try to come in here trying to impress people, in the sense of don't fake it, right? Don't pretend to be someone you're not, because a lie cannot be sustained for that long. So for me, obviously impress, dress to impress, definitely. Let me make that clear. We don't want we want there to be that level of excellence. Right. But what I meant by don't fake the funk is don't pretend to be someone you're not, because one, that's lying. Two, you're leading, you're setting up a cracky foundation. It's not going to be sustainable. So with being you and laying it out, and you'll be able to sustain that, throughout the duration of, if there is a relationship or whatnot, the other person can never say, well, I didn't know that, or that's not what you said, and so I think that's really, really important. It's just how you lay the foundation is what you're going to have to sustain it on, and that just encompasses how truthful and the things that you're really presenting to the other person.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
That's so good.
Yessie, you talked about listening on your way to the event. What is your suggestion to our attendants?
Listen to music that will hype you up. We want the fun version of you. I guess all versions of you, right? But we
not at the same time.
Yeah. But we want you to come in fun, ready with that perspective of okay, this is gonna be a great time. Don't come all nervous in the car and listening to very dramatic music. That's not setting the tone.
No Mozart.
Let's set the tone for a fun environment, because I know that's what we're working hard for you guys. Obviously a fun and purposeful environment, but just come with that upbeat personality that you might have, and just that perspective of okay, I'm gonna make the best out of tonight. I'm coming and I'm investing in myself tonight.
Okay, do you have a song that they should, what would be your song?
Oh my gosh. I'm into country right now, but then I'm also into different music that I think I would just probably, don't ask me, because I'm listening to kids' music lately, to be honest.
All right, Shekinah, what song would you put?
Oh gosh. You know how you know how you forget every song when someone asks you what your favorite song is? That's what's happening right now. The only thing running through my mind is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I'm not gonna bump that though. But honestly, I think my favorite, like lately, I've been listening to a lot of like the classics, like Frank Sinatra and everything. It's happy, it's fun, it's just
Okay.
like, yeah, it's snappy, and you just get in there, it's like,
That's what hypes up Shakay.
yeah, that's what hypes me up. It's just, for the most part, they have that fun, positive message, and like, just go out there and do it,
Yeah.
singing in the rain.
Maybe this is how we do it. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. Right?
Buy the game?
Yeah.
Or wait, no.
What?
I was thinking this is how we do.
Maybe that one too. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know, just like something that gets you pumped. You know?
Yeah. What would be your drive to the event song, Denise?
That's a good question. I don't know. Come back.
Well, you're the last one, girlfriend.
Probably. I know it's gonna be so random, but like Debbie Deb, look at Weekend.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what mine would be that is appropriate to say on there. Just kidding. It'd probably be like.
But hey, Jake Hamilton has really good
Yeah, he
anthem
does.
song. That's
Oh,
a good
yeah,
hype
see?
song.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. All right, moving on.
Send your suggestions.
Yeah, send your
Yeah.
suggestions.
What should we listen to
please.
ourselves?
Put
That'd
together a
actually be
playlist
fun.
on Spotify.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Okay, so then last piece of advice, be open to the activities. Be open to the activities. I am determined to get people out of their shell, determined to get everybody into the zone. And so bring your competitive hats on. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be a whirlwind from the very beginning. So we're definitely doing the best to be able to treat you guys like royalty, the way that you deserve to be treated. And yeah, Shekinah, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think so. We talked about men bringing information cards, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to encourage an environment where the men are the one reaching out to the women, at least as the first handoff. So, men, bring your cards with the information, right? Like, make sure your name is on it. Make sure your phone number or your social media or whatever is on that card. It can be handwritten, but I think it would be a little bit more professional if you typed it up at least and printed out some, some cards you can cut up and hand out. But yeah, just be fun with it, like have fun with it. It can be as simple as you want it, but it can also be as elaborate as you want. I think that also says a lot about a person as well, as to what kind of card they bring and how they, whether it's laminated or not. I don't know. That's completely up to you.
Your business card.
Yeah, it's completely up to you and what that looks like. What we're just asking is that it just has your information, and that's really the basic requirement of that. But have fun with it. Don't be afraid to have fun and get creative.
Yes. All right, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to our Thursday podcast. We're so excited. Next week, I sat down with Mike Verduzco, which is Denise's husband, and I am excited to be able to release that interview. It's going to be absolutely great.
It's so good, you guys.
We can't wait to see you guys this Saturday. It's going to be hot fire. I'm already thinking what coffee order I'm going to put in for Sunday to be able to stay up at church. And what's cool is that we're going to hopefully record. I'm not looking at Ramsey right now, but hopefully record that Sunday, and you guys will be able to hear the feedback, everything, the stories, fresh, hot off the press. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate your support. Please let us know what you're thinking of the podcast on our social media at inthevine.dating. That's on Instagram. Or you can email us at inthevine.dating@gmail.com. Shekinah loves the dots, okay?
The dots.
She freaking loves the dots. Or you can just, I don't know, if you have our numbers, call us, text us. We're here. We're so excited. And again, Greater Words Christian Church, we're in Lancaster. We have service every Sunday, 10:30 in the morning. Come as you are. So cliche. Hate to say it, but it's the truth. So we love you guys. We thank you for tuning in, and have a good one. Bye.
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 Bye.